Now, I'm pretty sure everyone already knows what happened with PewDiePie and Maker Studios and Disney and him losing his deal with them and him, losing the second season of his show, Scare PewDiePie, all because he made a video saying death to all Jews, subscribe to Keemstar, and the Washington Post article that slandered him. I think everyone knows all about PewDiePie's character assassination and labeling him anti-Semitic and a Nazi supporter. So I'm not here to make the video that thousands of other people have made. But just kind of recount what happened, because I feel like that'd be a bit redundant. Because again, I'm sure you already know. So because you already know, I want to talk about a subject matter that's related to that. That happens a lot, actually. That exists pretty much everywhere. And it's really easy to use, and I think it's really strange that I haven't seen anyone else ever talk about this, and I think it's really strange that this phenomena is even successful, that it even works. And so what phenomena am I even talking about? I'm being really vague here. Well, what I'm talking about that I've noticed recently, it's really easy to label someone a Nazi. And what's strange about labeling people a Nazi is the fact that people automatically believe it. And that's really weird to me. It's really strange to me that it's really easy to just label someone a Nazi or call someone anti-Semitic or anything of that nature, and it latches on, it hooks on to people, like a goddamn tick or a leash or something. And it's just really hard to remove or wash that stain off of your clothes once you've been labeled with that. And that's really strange to me. And you say, no, you're probably like, well, why is that weird? Well, the reason why it's really weird to me is for two reasons. One, there's always a complete dismissal of the benefit of the doubt. No one ever is skeptical about someone being called Nazi. When I say no one, I mean like normies, like normal people. Because like people on YouTube who probably never even like watched a PewDiePie video would already come to the conclusion that the guy is not a National Socialist. Anyone with any common knowledge of just history would know that most people labeled Nazis are not even remotely close to National Socialists. That's not the point. I mean, most people would come to that conclusion. Well, but most people that have this knowledge. The problem that I seem to find, though, is that when you take that off, when you get off of internet-savvy people, and you get to normies, people who just kind of use the internet to check their emails and whatnot, it's really easy, again, to label someone with the snap judgment of being a Nazi, or being like Hitler, by the way, and I'll talk about that in a second, and people will automatically believe it. And this is a strange thing to me, because it makes no sense as to why anyone would, one, be a Nazi, and it makes no sense to me, second, why anyone would believe that someone would want to be a Nazi. And especially considering how in the collective consciousness of people in the Western world, the Nazis are viewed as the ultimate evil. So then while I was thinking about this for a second, I think I've come up with the answer as to why it's really easy to call someone a Nazi, and why people are totally fine with calling people a Nazi and saying that individuals are like Hitler. I mean, like, think about this. People said Donald Trump is the next Hitler, or is the new Hitler. And that has always struck me as odd, is really strange to me, because there's next to literally no parallel between Donald Trump and Hitler. Like at all. Like at all. There's nothing you can say that Donald Trump did that is similar to anything that Hitler has done. I mean, the interesting thing that I've always found about Hitler, though, is the reason why so many German people wanted to even follow Hitler was the fact that he was very well liked because he saved them from economic disaster. Hitler was a great speaker. People loved listening to Hitler at the time. I mean, Hitler did great things for Germany. And of course, this might sound like me saying that Hitler did nothing wrong, but that would be absurd. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that to the German people at the time, Hitler was a hero. That's why people were so willing to follow this guy. Donald Trump is not seen as a hero. It hasn't even been 100 days yet, for one. Even when Donald Trump was running for presidency, people never viewed Donald Trump as a favorable person. I mean, maybe half the country did, and most people who did follow Donald Trump followed him in silence because the collective conscious was Donald Trump was a terrible person. So, I mean, Hitler was very well liked in Germany. Donald Trump is only somewhat liked in America. Somewhat meaning only 50% of the population liked him. So that parallel just from that point of view, from that basic common sense approach from, Germany and America, Hitler and Donald Trump, the comparison makes no damn sense. Donald Trump has never talked about putting Mexican people in concentration camps. He's talked about making sure that people come into the country legally and you get the illegal people out. I mean, maybe you can make a loose thread of a connection between Hitler, saying that Hitler also tried to push the Jews out of Germany. I mean, this is true, but I mean, the difference being the Jews weren't in Germany illegally. Donald Trump wants illegal immigrants. It's not really Mexicans. I just think it just so happens that a lot of the Mexicans, you know, I'm sorry, a lot of the illegal people are coming from Mexico. I think that's more happenstance. I think if the illegal immigrants came from Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump would still be saying send them back. That said, again, I was just so the point that I'm making is that when you really stop and take a critical, analytical look between Donald Trump and Hitler, the comparison makes no damn sense. But then, when I was thinking about it, I came to realize that it doesn't have to make any sense. I mean, look at PewDiePie again. Now, looking at what PewDiePie did, was his jokes untoward? I mean, certainly, of course, that was kind of the point. The point was, if you give this Fiverr, this website, $5, they'll make a joke about anything, or they'll make a video about anything, and that it's really easy to abuse. That was the social commentary PewDiePie was going for. So, I mean, it shows that, again, his objective was to show that this was not a good thing. But that's not the point. It's not important. And what's even more important, or at least interesting to me, is the fact that despite the fact that PewDiePie was trying to be virtuous here, it completely backfired into his face. You know, the time PewDiePie tries to do some political commentary, it just explodes. It kind of destroys him. Well, not really. I mean, his fans on YouTube are perfectly fine with him. It's really, you know, the normies or the people who read the Washington Post that are really, you know, getting the misinformation. So again, if you look at PewDiePie and just, you know, his catalog of videos, you'll find that he's just kind of, he's an alright guy. You know, he doesn't do anything wrong, and a lot of people come to the conclusion that this is the battle between new media and old media. That the people of old media, you know, just radio broadcasting, not radio broadcasting, but you know, people who work on articles and news websites are really sick, or they really don't like the fact that individuals want to spend time watching videos on YouTube and whatnot, so they're trying to destroy them. And sure, I guess you could say that. I am more inclined to believe that to be the case, but that's not really what I want to focus on today. What I want to focus on today is the fact that, again, calling someone a Nazi or saying someone is like Hitler works. What I mean by works is that it gets people to look at the individual in an unfavorable light without any actual, not even critical analysis. I mean, that's asking for way too much. Well, not even like a thought to why someone would think that. People just automatically believe it. And which I always thought was weird, because again, you take someone like PewDiePie, and no one asked the question, why would PewDiePie be a Nazi? Again, his fan base knows it's not true. People on YouTube know it's not true, but to the normies, to the people who even wrote the article, why would anyone believe that? Why would anyone be inclined to think that someone would want to be a Nazi? And again, I think I have found the answer to the question. So enough grandstanding, enough. I spent like 5 minutes talking this point up. Let's actually dissect. Why does it work calling people a Nazi? Because PewDiePie ended up losing his deal with Maker Studios, and you know, even YouTube, I think, removed his advertising on some of his videos, all because of this article. Now here's why I think it works. Because when you look at the way our collective conscious here in the West views the Nazis, people view Nazis as the ultimate evil, as the greatest example of just evil and just dastardly planning to ever come. Almost literally, almost cartoonish. People look at the Nazis the same way comic book fans look at Hydra, like they're just truly genuine evil of all evil. Hitler, again, being the greatest evil to ever walk the face of the earth. Joseph Stalin, for some reason, gets a pass. No one really talks or thinks about him. In fact, there aren't very many movies made to slam Joseph Stalin. But there's a lot of movies that slam the Nazis and Hitler and Germany and all of that. Now, excuse me, I think part of the reason why, and this might be a bit of a conspiracy theory, is because there's a lot of Jewish people in Hollywood that like really run everything, and they just want to browbeat us with how horrible the Holocaust was, because I guess they want to vicariously absorb the torture that happened to their ancestors. I don't know. Again, a bit of a conspiracy theorist. But the fact remains that Nazis, being evil, terrible people, has been beaten into the collective conscience of people in the West. And I think this is conjecture, but I don't think I'm wrong here, I think the reason why people are totally fine with calling individuals Nazis and never actually thinking about what that word entails is not only because you think of Nazis as the ultimate evil, but because comparing yourself to the ultimate evil makes you the ultimate good. I mean, so basically what I'm saying is, calling someone a Nazi is just the greatest form of virtue signaling. Because if you think about it for a second, there's really no counter-argument against being a Nazi. And there's no way that you could call someone a Nazi and they can sit down and explain why they think it's fine to murder millions of people. You can't do it. You can't fucking do it. So because there's no way to defend against being called a Nazi other than saying, I'm not, anyone that compares themselves to you, the Nazi, anyone that compares themselves to the Nazis would look good almost regardless of the circumstance, because there really isn't any way to compare any shitty thing that you've done to the murder of 6 or 11 million people. Calling someone a Nazi and saying that you are against that is the ultimate virtue signal, because there's no counter argument. There's no way to say that what the Nazis did was fine. Think about feminism, right? You can debunk feminism from morning to from sunrise to sundown. You can say it's bullshit, and people are going to argue with you. There's a counterpoint to the bullshit that feminists come. So even when feminists want to virtue signal, even when they want to look, even same with social justice warriors, even when they want to look good, even when they want to look great, there's always a way to counter that. Like when feminists want to say, or when social justice warriors want to say that white men are terrible, shitty human beings and they've done all these terrible things, you can counter that by saying, well, they've done lots of good things as well. You could fight against that. You could say, well, you know, honestly, if you were in a flaming, burning building, you would probably want a big, strong man to come in there and save you. But you can never say, in earnest, in any scenario, that you would be glad to be in the presence of a Nazi, because they're probably going to fucking kill you. They're the ultimate evil, again, in the collective minds of North America, of the Western world. And because these people are viewed as so evil, and there's no way you can argue against them, I think people are totally fine with calling someone a Nazi or labeling them anti-Semitic, because we've been all browbeaten to think that this is the ultimate evil. This is the worst thing you could ever possibly be. And because it's the worst thing, since I'm not that thing, I look great. I look good in comparison to that evil. I mean, if you think about it for a second, you know, a bad thing compared to a worse thing is always going to look favorable. It's always going to look better. Like if you cut your hand, you're always probably going to prefer it than if you broke it, or God forbid, if it was amputated. You know, if you look at a cut on your hand, versus the hand not being there at all, in any and all circumstances, you're probably going to prefer getting cut. And I think it's the same thing as labeling someone a Nazi or calling someone Hitler. It's the greatest form of virtue signaling, because there's no counter argument. You're always going to look good when you're compared to this gigantic ball of just disgusting human behavior. Now, that then kind of brings up another question. Another interesting question, and that is, well, okay, if that's true, Zeus, your conjecture is all right, then why is it that people would rather prefer to look good than to be good? Because, I mean, if you looked at the Washington Post article that was written about PewDiePie, the person who's grandstanding here and calling PewDiePie anti-Semitic and a Hitler supporter is obviously, if he is trying to do what I think he's doing, which is virtue signaling and trying to make other people feel good for doing nothing, well, I actually just kind of revealed the answer to my question. Why nobody actually wants to be virtuous, and instead of lying about someone you don't know in order to look good, why does no one actually want to be the virtuous individuals that people want to look up to? And I think the answer to it is because, well, being a good person is fucking hard. It is difficult to make the right decisions. It's hard to be righteous. It's hard to be virtuous. It's hard to be steadfast in your decisions, especially when everyone else around you is a shitty individual who's trying to peer pressure you into doing bad. It is difficult. It is a difficult thing to do. But you know what isn't difficult? Looking good. It's not hard to virtue signal. It's not hard to look good. It's not hard to cast the darkness or cast the beam onto someone else's evil while you just, never have to address or deal with your own. I think it's really because it's so easy to virtue signal. It's so easy to look and feel good. No one ever actually has to be good. And I think that's why, the whole Nazi salute, I'm not Nazi saluting, but the whole Nazi allegation is so powerful, and why it convinces so many people that someone they don't know or they don't like is a terrible person. Because not only are the Nazis the ultimate evil, but comparing yourself to that makes you feel like the ultimate good. And you get all of those good feelings, and you look really good, without ever actually having to put any effort in being a virtuous human being. You don't have to put any effort in being virtuous. You can just say, well, that person's a Nazi. I'm not, so that means I'm fine. And of course, this is all just conjecture. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am. So those are my thoughts. Hopefully, I have said something interesting, something that makes you guys think. And if I did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Yeah, shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. As always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.